I was the costume designer, I was the caterer, I was the fight choreographer, I was the casting, person. So yeah, I wouldn't wish that on my anybody who tells me they're going to do all these things
Yeah,
and then try to make a martial art movie. I would advise against it because it was.
yeah,
I
it's
survived it.
Hey guys, welcome to part two of my interview with Ron Hall. This one we're going to talk about what he did after Bloodsport 2, including making a pretty much no budget film, some interesting insight into Vampire Assassin. We're also going to talk about an upcoming project he's working on, and also some fun things related to Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan, so you don't want to miss that. But anyway, if you like this kind of content, please help support the channel, hit the like button, subscribe, and share the video. So after Bloodsport 2, though, what'd you go on to do?
I did a movie called Sinbad, with the same company eventually, and then I did a lot of TV. I did like Buffy and Martial Law, and went and did those things for a while.
Okay.
And I just determined that I'll give an example. Like martial arts in movies kind of is a universally accepted thing now, especially the Hong Kong style of action. But back then, people were very critical of it and very critical of me for doing it. People would say, "Oh, Ron, that kung fu stuff is not going to work in the States." And I always believed in it because it's not about like kung fu. I always believed that martial arts, given the same attention and focus as any big budget Hollywood movie, could yield the same results, i.e., The Matrix.
Mhm.
Like I saw The Matrix before there ever was a Matrix. I knew that they could do that with martial arts, but people didn't believe at that time. People thought it was kind of kooky to do martial arts, especially if you look at the '90s movies. You'll see the fighting is very different from how the fighting is done now. Very little acrobatics, more Western style boxing. More Muay Thai fighting as opposed to kind of like Taekwondo or Kung Fu or stuff like that. So, these are very different periods, but the '90s really was an essential transition to segue from the kind of, you know, overreach of Hong Kong action and to bring down to the subtleties of American action. I'll give an example. One reason why Steven Seagal is so lauded in the martial art movie community is because the act of realism that he brought was that he brought the element of impact to his movies.
Oh yeah,
Meaning that
him and
most
Van
martial,
Damme both.
yeah, I would say even Van Damme did, but I would say even more so with Seagal because what Seagal did was it was very didn't look technical, even though it was extremely technical.
Mhm.
Because anybody who's a master of something will make it look simple. Michael
Sure.
Jordan, when he shoots a basketball, he's probably doing 40 different moves, but to the average person, it just looks
Just
like he's chucking
effortless
a
looking,
basketball.
yeah. Hmm.
Same with Steven Seagal.
Oh yeah.
His martial arts it comes off simple, but it's very complex. And on the receiving end, it's very brutal. It's very brutal. He throw you into a window, break your arm, break your leg, stab you, and run the knife out of your chest through your back. And Americans get that. It's kind of like the Eastern culture is kind of like more internal, and Western culture is more external. We want to see the visceral impact of what's being done, as opposed to in Chinese culture, somebody can pop you with their finger, and that's acceptable. That it'll touch your nerve, and you can die from blocking an artery or something like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, we wouldn't buy that in American films so much, but we need to feel that those hits, right? Like a
And see
Rocky
it
movie or
felt
something.
and hear it felt. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so you did a bunch of TV shows and stuff. You did eventually direct a film, right?
Yes, I've directed a couple of films. The first film I wanted to direct was first film I tried to direct was a kung fu movie called The Slow Die Fast, which is essentially a West spaghetti western and kung fu movie. I wanted it to be, I wanted all the things that I loved about kung fu movies in it. And the Western genre to me is absolutely perfect because it's kind of like a period where we had some structure, but there was a lot of freedom.
Yeah,
So the
sure.
Western seemed like the perfect genre to implant all the things that I liked into a martial art movie and kind of present it under the veneer of being something truly American. So yeah, so that's why I chose that type of film to make.
Wait, so you directed that one? What was that called?
Yes, The Slow Die Fast.
I thought that was the one you're trying to make.
I'm going to read. What ended up happening was this was at the dawn of digital technology. And, at that time when I was making the movie, I didn't have another computer to back it up. So while I still have all the footage, it was like my edits was all over the place and I crashed my editing and I just walked away from it. I said, you know what, I'll do it someday. Because,
wait a minute. So this movie's not even out.
No.
So you shot the whole thing, but you never released it.
Yes.
And now you want to remake it, or you just want to cut what you shot? You want to remake
it? No. I don't want to. What I shot was, like I said, it was shot on DV. Low budget.
It was like a trial practice run. You shot it, but you're not going to use that. You learned from that. Now you want to make it with a bigger budget, I guess, right?
Right. A better film. And for example, that was over 20 years ago, and I'm a different person now.
Yeah, sure.
And my sensibilities into what I want to put in the movie is very different from what I had when I was initially making it. So, yeah.
Wow. I mean, I know you've talked about that to me before on the phone. I didn't know you actually shot it. I thought this was just something that you wanted to shoot. That's actually kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so you directed that. I know you're kind of, I guess, infamous for Vampire Assassin, right?
Super infamous for Vampire Assassin. Yes. Matter of fact, Vampire Assassin was the most reviewed movie on Blockbuster.com.
Wow.
And all of them were negative.
But not for reviewed, not for good reasons, but
yeah.
But people watched it. At least they rented it, right?
Yeah. Well, hey,
Can you actually tell us what the real budget was?
There was no budget.
Well, I mean, there was something though, right? I mean, you had to spend something on it.
Yeah, you spend money, but you just spend what you have. Meaning that if I need to pay, if I need $85 to feed people for lunch, $150 to buy clothing, and $75 to pay the cameraman, that's your budget for that time. Meaning that when you're trying to make something. Basically, I'll give an example. Dolomite was my mentor. I worked with Dolomite for about 8 years, Rudy Ray Moore. And he was all of those movies he made, they didn't essentially have a budget. He just made them with what he had, with the resources he had. There was no accounting. There was no kind of line producer. He just went and said, I need this amount of money to get this location, 5 people, 5 costumes, and a car and a machine gun. How much does that cost? $500? Okay, that's the budget for the day. That was essentially the approach to Vampire Assassin.
How long did it take to shoot it?
I think I shot Vampire Assassin probably in about 25 days.
Did you write it too?
Yeah, I wrote it. Yeah.
So you wrote, directed, starred in it. Did you edit it too?
No, I edited a version that I've seen it, but it's very different from the version that you see if you rent the movie. Also, I was the costume designer, I was the caterer, I was the fight choreographer, I was the casting, person. So yeah, I wouldn't wish that on anybody who tells me they're going to do all these things and then try to make a martial art movie. I would advise against it. I survived it. I survived it, and but I wouldn't do it again.
Yeah, crazy process to wear all those hats. So did you just decide one day, I'm going to shoot this movie and then hopefully it'll get distributed? Or did you already have a distributor in mind that they said, hey, if you make a movie, we'll put it out?
No, I just basically, when I got into it, I just knew that I was kind of over my head because I had a team of people who started the movie with me, and one by one, how if you're trying to make something low budget, people quit. It's like they want to do it, they urge you to do it, and the second you jump in it, they can't show up, they can't do what's asked of them. So yeah.
They're more than likely just prioritize if they get a job that pays, for example, unless they're your best friend or just super passionate about it. But yeah, they'll just, hey, I'm getting paid on this. See you, Ron.
Yeah. Well, wow. I mean, paying your dues in Hollywood, everybody, everybody is asked to do movies that they don't get paid. It's kind of like credit. It's like you don't get credit unless you have it. Mm-hmm. So working on movies that you don't get paid for with money you get paid for in a lot of different ways. You make associations. You know, there were people on my movie that actually, I was just talking to a guy, BJ, who was on my movie. And because of me, he got casted in something that he went to China and became like a huge success in China, you
Oh,
know, because of
wow.
working on Vampire Assassin. So yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, no, I mean, there's other ways it'll pay off, right? Not monetarily right away, or
Right.
maybe not ever, but just other ways with the people you meet, the experience you get, etc. So, what was your like main goal and reason in mind to make it? Just because you wanted to make a movie, or was this more for like what purpose did you make that movie for?
Well, yeah. Well, I made it to make a movie, you know, because like I said, at that time, the roles that were being offered to me was basically the sidekick role always. Like, go be somebody's sidekick. And I had done that and I wanted to do something else, but nobody was saying, you know, hey, go do something else. So David Huey, who produced Vampire Assassin, you know, he said, hey, Ron, you know, I got a camera and we can edit it. And, you know, I'll give you a little bit of money for this and that. Take it or leave it. I took it.
Okay, so basically it was just so since nobody was offering you the lead in any film, you're like, I'll just do it myself and I'll be the lead in it. That's basically
Well, no,
what motive
not
was.
even the lead. I'm not, it wasn't, I was looking for a lead. I wanted to do, you know, it's kind of like I said, it's like, I wanted to express kind of what I wanted to express creatively about martial arts. You know, I believe martial arts is a very exciting, visceral, visual tool that is used right. It can excite you as much as the best special effect you've ever seen.
Oh,
Like if you
sure.
take the trench run of Star Wars and you take the end of Enter the Dragon, those are similar experiences for you as the viewer.
Hmm.
Martial arts can do that.
Oh, yeah.
However, a lot of people don't believe martial art. They know it's attractive, but they don't know how to put in the effort. And I'll give an example. Somebody say, "Hey, Ron, I want you to make the end of the movie like Ong Bak," and then they go, "You got one day to shoot it." Well, you know, Ong Bak, they probably took a month to do that end scene.
Yeah,
So
sure.
that's kind of like, you know, the trade-offs in trying to make those type of movies.
Yeah, that makes sense. What'd you end up doing after Vampire Assassin?
Well, after Vampire Assassin, I did a couple of other things. I directed a movie, Dolomite. He had been working on a movie, and me and him started collaborating. I ended up finishing his movie. What was it called? The Dolomite Explosion. So I worked as a director on that, but I didn't get credited as a director. So I
Okay.
did that. And then I did another movie after that called Kung Fu Brother, which I was the lead and I was the action director on it. And, you know, we ended up winning Best Action Film in 2006 or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, nice. But you did like get out of film for a while, right?
Yes.
Why did you decide to just kind of like put it to the side, just all
Because
of a sudden?
Yeah, because I was spending too much energy trying to work in films. I said I could take this energy and do something else. So
Okay.
I went and created me a business, and had the same business for 15 years, and had developed other aspects of my life instead of trying to get an opportunity.
You want to tell us about the other thing you're working on? Don't you got a big announcement, Ron?
Sure. Um, I'm releasing a comic book called The Tale of Ron Hall, which is kind of like a fictionalized, mythological account of my life, in kung fu movies. So we're releasing it as a comic that should come out October the 1st, and I'll be at Dragon Fest promoting the comic. And, a fellow martial artist and filmmaker, Mike Kelly, who actually did martial art movies as an actor, came to me and had this idea about making a comic. And at first, I really had very little interest in it, but he put so much creativity and passion into it that when I saw what it was, it just won me over. And I just jumped in with both feet to, help him bring this vision of, this comic book about the fictionalized Ron Hall, to people. And, hopefully people will like it. And, we can continue to develop the comic.
Where can people buy it? Like online in the comic book store? Is it
Yeah. You can get it from kungfucomics.com, but we won't start selling it until probably September the 15th. You will be pre-order. You can pre-order the comic.
But is it only going to be online, available
No, it
online?
actually will be a physical comic in stores.
Oh, you
So
can
you'll
buy it
be
at
able
the
to get
comic
it
book
from a
store.
local comic book store. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool, man. So you said it's coming out October 1st?
Well, yeah.
And
We're going
then
to start
how
pre-selling it about 2 weeks before, and then the book will be released on October the 1st.
how often are new issues? Is it going to be monthly? Is it going to be quarterly?
First, we're going to do quarterly just to see
Quarterly?
what the interest is like.
Trying
And
to
then,
test
if
out the
there's
market.
substantial interest, we'll pop them out as much as we can. And if there's not, we'll try something else.
Okay, cool, man. You got to get me a signed copy when it comes out, please.
Yes, sir.
Put it in the bookcase, right?
Oh, yeah.
That'd be
Yeah.
nice. Very cool, man. Yeah, look forward to that. And then the Dragon Fest thing where you're gonna basically be in character. Well, I mean, the
Yeah,
comic book's about you, but you have a specific like uniform
sure.
you wear, right?
Sure. Yeah. I'm a product of like martial arts and martial art fandom. I love martial art movies. Martial art movies are part of who I am. And, and they help how I designed my martial art, meaning that I wanted my martial art to be visually, entertaining. I just didn't want to do fighting. And, it's kind of like I've worked with a lot. I'll give you an example. Not Philip Reed, but Simon Reed. We worked on, let's see, what was it? Martial law together on the pilot episode. And Simon Reed gave me a compliment that a lot of people have given me, which is, Ron, you one of the few people that make Kung Fu look like you can hurt people.
That's the problem with Kung Fu movies. It's like they'll do 20 moves and it's just like it doesn't do anything, man. Van Damme hits you one time and you're knocked out, right?
Yeah, well, that's just because of sensibilities. It's like, you got to think about it. Kung Fu, Chinese, all martial arts around the world, their culture is embedded in the martial art. Mm-hmm. So our culture, like I said earlier, is about impact.
Oh, yeah.
Impact and visual results. Their culture is about technique and, movement and, your chi, your energy. So that's a whole different way that you're appealing to the audience.
But you bridged it. According to Simon Reed, you bridged it. You brought the impact to the Kung Fu.
Well, no, I mean,
you made it look like it would hurt.
I'm a person who can do it, but there are many others that can do it. I mean, I'll give you an example, like Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan, as much as Jackie Chan is a kung fu guy, when you look at some of Jackie Chan's best fights, where he's fighting Benny Urquidez, where he's fighting Dick Wei, Jackie Chan can bring it on. I mean, I'll put it like this. Jackie Chan probably could give Bruce Lee the best cinematic fight he ever had, because Jackie Chan is a brawler, outside of being a kung fu technician. He's a great brawler when it comes to martial art. Movies like A Heart of the Dragon, Dragons Forever. I mean, Jackie's done countless movies where the brawling part of his martial art is amazing. So, yeah.
Didn't you impress Jackie Chan at one time?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. What ended up happening was Philip Tan had invited me on the set of Rush Hour.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
And this is actually a pretty highlight point of my life. Was Philip Tan had invited me down to the set of Rush Hour, and I had already met Jackie when I was first trying to get movies. I used to send Jackie my videotapes and pictures, and he was like, "Oh, you look pretty cool. If you ever come to Hong Kong, give me a call." So when the first time I went to Hong Kong, I gave him a call, and we went down to the set and met him, and at the time met his father, and he was making I think Police Story or Crime Story. That's what he was making. He was making Crime Story. And, I impressed upon him that I loved his work and I really wanted to work with him. And what was funny was at the time he was complaining about a lot of Americans stealing his content. He was complaining about Stallone and Tango and Cash and, Mel Gibson from Lethal Weapon. He thought that they were kind of copying what he was doing. So what ended up happening was Philip Tan was working on Rush Hour and he invited me down. And I saw Jackie, and Jackie knew me pretty well by then. He knew who I was, he knew what I wanted. And I said, "Hey, Jackie," I said, "You're in America now. When are we going to work together?" He said, "Oh, one day, we'll see." And he said, "You got a tape?" I said, "Yeah." So I ran to my car to get a tape, and I gave it to Jackie. Now, when I gave it to Jackie, he had the tape. He kind of looked at his assistant like, throw this in the trash. And he kind of threw it over his shoulder, kind of like this, and she put it in a bag. So I was like, I was defeated. I'm thinking, he's never gonna watch that. So the next day I went back to the set And I was standing there and I was talking to kind of like some of the top stuntmen. I was talking to like, I think it was like James Amata, James Liu, Al Godo, Vic Armstrong. We were all kind of like just sitting there, shooting the breeze. And Jackie Chan saw me and he yelled, he said, "Ron Hall." And he ran through the crowd all the way to me in the company of some of Hollywood's top stuntmen and said, "Ron, I've seen people from all over the world. You're one of the best I've ever seen. You got talent." And he said, "We're going to work together one day. You got talent." I've never worked with Jackie Chan, but
that is a hell of a compliment, though. Somebody like Jackie Chan saying that. I mean, wow.
Yeah. Well, Frankie Chan. Some of your listeners might know who Frankie Chan is. Frankie Chan is a director who's worked on some of Jackie Chan's other movies. He's worked on like Operation Condor, Thunderbolts, Rush Hour 2. He's usually like Jackie's second unit director.
Okay.
Frankie actually brought me to Hong Kong to star in some movies, but what happened was it was right at the time when I was getting the Marc Dessau deal, so I chose the Marc Dessau deal over the Frankie Chan deal.
Which, I mean, who could blame you? It sounds like a pretty sweet deal based on what Marc Dessau's done, right?
Right, but I used to ask Frankie, I said, "Hey, why won't Jackie work with me?" He said, "Well, if you do kind of the same thing Jackie does, it would be kind of like you're stealing his thunder. So maybe that's why you're not working together." And that makes kind of sense. I'm not Jackie Chan. I can't replace Jackie Chan. What Jackie Chan has done for the industry is just revolutionary.
Sure.
But, I can understand that, it's like if you got a black guy kind of doing similar type things in the same movie, it probably would cancel each other out. And what's interesting is actually I've had other filmmakers from Hong Kong that, had approached me about making movies, like Chen Quan Tai from a lot of the Shaw Brother films. He came to meet me to make a movie. He wanted to do a movie, but he stayed over here for about a year, couldn't get it together, and went back over to Hong Kong. So, just another rung on the ladder or a step in the journey.
Let me ask you this, Ron, because you talked a little bit earlier about your martial arts training. What about like your acrobatics? Did you ever do like gymnastics or tumbling classes, or how did you develop that? Oh, you did? Okay.
I learned gymnastics in high school, and they didn't really teach you how to flip. They just gave you the facilities where you could try it
without killing yourself. Sure.
Yeah. I would say it took me about 100 tries to get a backflip. To learn how to do like the back tip up. That probably took me about 300 times to get it right.
So you're self-taught as far as like the acrobatics and gymnastics go.
Yeah, and that goes back to my martial art, because in both of the martial arts that I took, I never went all the way. I was never a black belt in karate. I never was black belt in, a black sash and wushu. But
nobody would guess that, dude. If they watch your movies, nobody would think, and it doesn't matter if like you were developing these techniques, because obviously you were training all the time, whether you got official rank or did official forms, it is what it is. But nobody would ever watch you and be like, wait, this dude's not even quote a black belt.
Right. Well, here's where it comes from, is learning the fundamentals. Like, for example, if you look at let's take a musician. Some of the greatest musicians of all time were self-taught. Prince, people, Kurt Cobain, Frank Zappa, all self-taught musicians. In a way, I'm kind of self-taught in that I learned all the basics and fundamentals from the martial art that I took, that allowed me to, when I encounter somebody and they're teaching me a martial art, one, I can comprehend it pretty quickly, understand it pretty quickly, and learn how to develop it pretty quickly, where I probably can convince you I know that martial art. So it doesn't say that I'm not a martial artist. It's just that my development was not a traditional path. I am I study martial arts all the time, and I actually believe I'm a more capable martial artist now than I was, 20 years ago. So, and I bet a lot of older martial artists will tell you that. And, that was really a factor that I would say about 15 years ago, I was a little bit concerned because I was thinking I was running out of time, but I'm not worried. If it takes another 5 years, I'll be fine. Jackie Chan, almost 70 making a movie,
Yeah, no, it's crazy, man. He still moves great, especially at that age.
Sure.
You had mentioned earlier that initially your brother was quite a bit better and then you surpassed him. So did you just train a lot more than him, or how do you think you ended up passing him up?
I was obsessed with Kung Fu. I used to wear ankle weights under my clothes. You know, I would take my mother's pants and turn them into kung fu pants. Everything about my life was kung fu. You know, they
Just
used to call me,
completely
like, you know,
obsessed with it. Okay.
yeah, I was obsessed with martial arts because martial arts is an amazing. I mean, here's how amazing martial arts is. Bruce Lee, through a simple, 2-year period, has transformed the world in such a way. We're talking about him on a daily basis. 50 years later, he's at the top of culture, pop culture, social status, like, of all time. Like, I would say the only person probably more, cared for than Bruce Lee is probably Jesus Christ. But there's nobody else that can compare to what Bruce Lee brought in terms of how he affected the lives of so many people. You know, if you like Van Damme, you like Bruce Lee. If you like Steven Seagal,
you know Van Damme got inspiration from Bruce Lee.
Yeah, well, that's how impactful what Bruce Lee did was.
Mm-hmm.
So Bruce Lee really was just he was like a meteor or a comet that just streaks through here and shapes the world. And and his legacy lives on in people like you, people like me, the people that are watching. We all are connected to Bruce Lee, and it connects us to each other. You know, we have a relationship with each other through martial arts, through Bruce Lee. And so, yeah.
No, it's crazy, dude. I mean, I got this picture right here. This was actually hand drawn from Mike the Machine Bruce, one of the strongest men, pound for pound, on the planet. Drew that for me. He also bent this horseshoe with his bare hands, by the way, man. Crazy guy, cool guy. But yeah, he's a huge Bruce Lee fan. You are, I am. And Bruce Lee died well before I was ever born, but he still made a big impact on my life. And it's like, this dude died before I was ever born. So it's just crazy, right? He still made such a huge impact on my life.
I mean, if you think about it, it's not even that we're Bruce Lee fans. We are products of Bruce Lee. Not just as fans, we're not people we're people who have adapted philosophies in our lives that we've incorporated into how we live that come straight out of Bruce Lee's mouth.
Oh yeah, I got the book his daughter wrote that she put out last year. I think it's called Be Water, My Friend.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's brilliant, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are in a way part Bruce Lee through the philosophy, through the inspiration in the martial arts. It's he lives on through us. We're not just dudes watching his movies. We're kind of living them in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, great stuff, man.